Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is exactly 17 after 9 o'clock. A very big welcome to our Polokwane listeners on One Nation FM. Coming up in the next hour, we will be talking with Becky Ngwenya, teacher at the Hazyview Comprehensive School in Nelspruit, about International Day of Education. We will also be talking with Junaid Rylands from Islamic Relief South Africa, and he's going to be highlighting the current campaigns that Islamic Relief is running. But first up, we'll talk with Fikile Velakazi, a political analyst, and we're going to be looking at the issue regarding the DA versus ANC, the court battle which started yesterday regarding Cadre deployment. Fikile, very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie, and good morning to listeners at home. Thank you for inviting me.
Lovely to have you on the show and to make some sense of what exactly is going on here. And I'm kind of wondering, the DA has now taken the ANC to court. They will defend this action. How long is it going to take? Who is paying for this court case? And what sort of an outcome can we expect? Is it going to change anything at all?
Julie, just to remind listeners at home, this is a fight about cadre deployment, which is a policy of the African National Congress that they use to be able to deploy people into government. So all the ministers that we see who are members of the ANC come through that particular process. It has been found to be problematic. The Democratic Alliance, as an opposition party, has decided to take the ANC government into court to ensure that corruption is prevented, because we have seen in the last couple of years, based on the outcomes of the Zondo Commission report, that cadre deployment has collapsed government. Cadre deployment has exacerbated corruption and, of course, exacerbated poverty and unemployment and all the social ills that we see that come with that. So in terms of the Constitution, Julie, and listeners at home, you've got what we call Section 197 that talks about public service and public servants, that, of course, indicates that anyone that is employed in the public service has got certain rights to enjoy. And one of those things it says is that in Section 197, subsection 3, is that any member that is employed by the public service has got a right not to be prejudiced because they support a particular political party, but also not to be favored. And I think that is where the application of the Democratic Alliance is centered in terms of court, to say cadre deployment in the manner that we have been experiencing it, Julie, it has been favoring African National Congress deployees, ministers who clearly have not been able to deliver, members of cabinet that have not been able to uphold their oath of office. Some of them really listed in the corruption scandals that we see in the Zondo Commission continue to enjoy employment under the cadre deployment policy, and of course because they're members who are loyal to the ANC. And that is what the DA is challenging here, to say we can no longer afford to have a public administration, a public service management system that is loyal to parties, because it compromises citizens, it compromises service delivery. And that is a call of the DA to say, can we have an independent public service system in the country that is not going to be affected by any political party? So that is the gist of the matter. And in terms of payment, in terms of whether this is going to be resolved soon, it's something that we need to watch and see, Julie, and listeners at home. We know that court processes in South Africa are very slow. The judiciary is said to be captured as well. And it really depends on the bench that looks at this matter. It has been submitted in 2021 already, and we are already into 2022, and there's nothing that is forthcoming. Of course, there was a hearing the other day. But these processes take time. However, we always say, Julie, that Parliament is not just the ANC. We've got the opposition that has got a responsibility to hold the executive accountable. And I think the act of the Democratic Alliance is an exercise in that direction. And I'm hoping that the Democratic Alliance is paying for the cost of court You know how it works in South Africa. If you're a member of parliament, you then have to access taxpayers' money to be able to pay some of the bills, especially in this case because it has got to do with a bill that is in front of parliament, which I think is intended to amend what you call the Public Administration Services Act. So that is what it is here to say, and the cadre deployment policy bill. That's what they call it, Julie. And I want to say, I think the call is a necessary one. South Africans will probably, in this case, agree with the DA that we are tired of a public service administration system that is affected by party political systems. And I want to believe that the DA is counting itself here. We have been saying, Julie, the party political system in South Africa, in the way that it stands, is not servicing a citizen of this country. It does not center the citizen in terms of service delivery. Even if a government of 2024 becomes the DA or becomes the EFF or becomes a coalition of some kind, if they do not resolve issues of cadre deployment in the manner that the DA is arguing, we are still going to be sitting in the same situation. So that is what is at stake here. And I really hope that it is resolved soon, because we cannot go beyond 2024 with this kind of cadre deployment policy. In fact, it is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional because it promotes what one could claim is sort of promoting nepotism. Because people are deploying each other on the basis of friendship, on the basis of loyalty to their political parties. It's bound to compromise certain things too.
And of course, the hope as well, Fikile, is that once this is stopped in its tracks, we'll also, in a sense, I'm hoping that that is going to be achieved as well. In a sense, we'll be able to put a stop to the whole issue around tenderpreneurship, tenders for pals. Do you think that's also a possibility going forward?
In my view, I think that if we change the cadre deployment system as it stands now, it's really going to help us to resolve those issues, because you are looking at a system that will be highly professionalized if it is successful. I do not know what the DA has in mind, but some of us, from communities have also been calling to say, have an independent public service administration that can be highly professionalized in such a way that those who are employed into managers, for example, in the municipal managers, those who are ministers, they don't necessarily account on the basis of political party affiliation, but it is based on merit, it is based on the skills and the capabilities that they have to be able to deliver in that particular sphere. So if, for instance, you have someone that is managing a municipality, that person has got to be able to demonstrate project management skills, service delivery understanding, mobilization of communities and so on. And of course, have been able to build partnerships with the service providers that are needed to build municipalities. In this particular case, someone that can interact easily with engineers, easily with scientists, easily with those who are working with energy, and those who build roads and bridges, so that they are able to deliver. And none of that should be linked to the tenderpreneurship process, and none of that should be linked to whether the person belongs to a political party or not. In fact, what the DA is calling for is that let us not have, in fact, anybody that belongs to a political party should not qualify for a service administration post of a different kind, so that they are neutral and their task is really to deliver on the ground. And in this case, I'm even saying the minister that manages the Public Service Commission should not even be the political head of this particular situation, so that you have probably an independent, either director or chief executive officer that is employed to be able to ensure that policies that govern public administration, as they come out of parliament, not any political party, are then protected and ensure that they are delivered without any bias towards a particular ideological standpoint of a political party.
Absolutely, and it's going to be very interesting post 2024. I'm predicting that we're going to have a coalition government, and it will be interesting to see how all of this then plays out. This is going to take a little bit of time before we get an outcome regarding this court case, and it also then indicates that it's not going to be, well, it may be implemented immediately, but is it going to address the cadres that already are sitting in cushy jobs? Or can we not backtrack to that situation?
I think what we may suggest to those who are leading this campaign, like the Democratic Alliance, and maybe other political parties that may support this positionality, is that if it can be applied retrospectively. What do I mean by that, actually?
Yes,
is that
yes.
you can then look at the Gender Commission report. There are certain cadres already that are mentioned there, and the public service administration system that works outside of the cadre deployment policy would then have to get rid of that kind of rot. Right? I think it can be done, but they will have to argue for retrospective application in court to ensure that it goes way back to areas where service delivery has been compromised, and get rid of those in the interest of non-performance, and then bring in other people that can be able to do the work. And hopefully in that way we'll begin to see criminal processes unfolding.
Absolutely. And of course, the DA Council likens the ANC's cadre deployment to cancer and says that this cancer is so serious that it needs to be removed so that there can be a very clean body going forward. And obviously, as you have also pointed out, a distinction between party and state.
It's very imperative, Julie, that there is a separation of powers here. Separation of powers is a political concept, and it's a political practice that says it's very, very important that we have independent institutions, who are governing different spheres of government. And in this particular case, we need to separate cadres from their political parties, because that line becomes blurry. And we have seen with the ANC cadre deployment policy. So we need to have a clear separation of powers here. If you're working for the state, you are reporting to the citizens of this country and to the voter, and not to the party. And if you have a conflict of interest, you cannot be, employed in that kind of work. And I think it's important as part of employment policies, human resource policies in this particular case, that can come out of this process to clearly indicate that conflict of interest requirement. That people have got to demonstrate and declare if they have any interest that may compromise their performance in this case. And I think that should be done at the interest of ensuring that there is clear separation of powers.
Undoubtedly, all eyes are on this case regarding the DA versus ANC court battle over cadre deployment. And we do hope for a favorable outcome, meaning that the rot must stop, and the rot must stop now. Fikile Vilakazi, political analyst, thank you indeed for your insights into this issue. Go well. Thank you once again, and God bless. It is exactly 9:30 a.m.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This